Today we are going to talk about a new lesson, Gulli Danda, which is written by one of the most celebrated writers of India, Munshi Premchand. He was earlier known as Dhanpat Rai Srivastav, and he had written many other famous novels like Godan, Nirmala, Gaban, etc. Munshi Premchand has written more than 14 novels and more than 300 short stories. Easy to understand. And what did he used to write? He used to write mainly about the problems that the poor people faced. All his stories were about people who were from either the poor background or lower middle class. And he was also an ardent supporter of Mahatma Gandhi. He supported Mahatma Gandhi's non cooperation movement and also other social reforms. He has written many literature, and most of them were on social evils like corruption, casteism, rich and poor divide, widowhood. Widowhood means a person who becomes a widow after her husband dies, and what kind of troubles she used to face in the society. And then the zamindari system. I'm sure you must have read it in social studies. What is the zamindari system and how the farmers used to suffer a lot because of this system? Because zamindars used to exploit the poor farmers. And Gulli Danda, let's try to understand what is Gulli Danda because the whole chapter is based on this game. This is a game that is of Indian origin, and this is especially a small piece of wood called gulli, which is paired with a long stick. So the stick is used as a bat. Okay, they dig a hole on the earth and then they have to aim that gully in the air. If the gully, flies high, the person who is batting gets points. And if the other person who is fielding, he's able to catch the gully and throw it in the stick. If it hits the stick, then he is out. The person who is batting is out. So here's about some high order thinking questions. So you can try reading these questions and answer them. Which outdoor game do you like to play the most? And also you have to give a reason why. So you can do this on your own. Here, the narrator, in this chapter, the narrator is describing his childhood memories and the games that he used to play, mainly about Gulli Danda. So, Gulli Danda, in the first sentence, the narrator says the English friends may or may not agree. What does that mean? So, remember that Munshi Premchand was a writer from the pre-independence era. Pre-independence in the sense the British people were still there in our country, and this is about a period when the British people were still there in our country ruling us. All right. And he says that these people, the English people, didn't know much about Gulli Danda, so he is not sure if they would call Gulli Danda the king of sports. But for Indians, Gulli Danda is the most favorite and most well played game. So what does he see? He uh, so the narrator, he says that he has such fond memories of playing Gulli Danda that he's grown up now, and he's still tempted to play Gulli Danda. He can still play the game of Gulli Danda, although he's a grown up man now and he is remembering his past, his childhood. In the second paragraph, you will see that uh, the narrator is talking about his sweetest memories, which is about playing Gulli Danda. How everyone would be involved in batting and fielding. So there was no phone or other games or other gadgets that people will be engaged in. Children were more into playing games, physical games. And Gulli Danda was a game which actually brought people closer together to each other, right? And when they played this game, the narrator says that there was no difference between rich and poor or between castes. Everything used to disappear. They would so much enjoy this game. So, out of all his playmates, the narrator remembers one particular guy whose name was Gaya. And his physical appearance is given here. He was thin, tall. His fingers were like a monkey's finger. That means they were very thin, and also a monkey's quickness and restlessness. So Gaya was swift, he was thin, he was tall, and he's also compared Gaya to a lizard. So this is a this is a simile that he has used to compare Gaya with a lizard. The lizard grabs an insect quickly and swiftly, and similarly, Gaya was such an expert in playing Gulli Danda that he would snap a gulli just as a lizard grabs an insect. So he did not know about his family background, and he didn't even want to know. All he knew was this, that Gaya was a wonderful player, and everybody wanted Gaya to be on their side when they were playing because he was such an expert. He would catch every gully, whoever was throwing, and he was good in batting, and he was also good in fielding, right? And people used to wonder how he is able to catch the gully so swiftly every time. And some of them, they also wondered if he had some magic in his fingers and how the gully actually used to fly and come and fall on his hand, on his palm. When my request, so one day what happened? We're going to read this paragraph now. One day, Gaya was batting and the narrator was fielding. And the narrator already knew that Gaya was a good player, and if he has started batting, that means he would keep on batting for the whole day, maybe. And so he wanted to escape. He wanted to go, and he said that you have to field for me because it is my turn to bat now. And then they fall into a little tiff. And then they start arguing with each other. Yeah. So the narrator says you can go only after Gaya says you can go only after I have completed my batting. The narrator says if you keep batting the whole day, should I keep fielding? And like that, they keep on fighting with each other. And what happens as a result, Gaya becomes so angry when the narrator is about to leave. Gaya catches hold of him, and then he uses a stick to hit him. And Gaya couldn't help it; he couldn't fight back. Then Gaya beats him and he leaves. The narrator feels very humiliated, and he's also hurt because he's a Thanedar's son, a policeman's son, and it hurts his dignity that I am a Thanedar's son and somebody came and just another boy, he came and just hit me and left and I couldn't do anything. So he was very humiliated, and he did not want to talk about this with anyone at home. He doesn't tell anyone at home, and he pretends as if everything was normal. Then after some time, his father had to transfer. The father had to transfer to another city. And the narrator was very excited, and he tells all his friends, he starts bragging in front of them that the place that he is going, bragging means to exaggerate and say things a lot. So he's saying all good about the city where he is going. And what good things are he telling? He's saying that the teacher in that city doesn't beat children. If they do it, they go to jail, right? And the children were very impressed when they heard that. And so they said, oh, they also talked amongst themselves. And they were also feeling envious that he's going to such a good place. And they were still there to live and die in that wretched place. Wretched place means a very poor place, which is unfortunate, where the teachers are beating them every day and they don't have much to see in this little village. So that's when the narrator leaves this village and he goes somewhere in the city. 20 years passes and now he's a grown-up man. So from here we are going to talk about his present. So now he's an engineer and he comes to the same little town, or this little town or village, you can say, for inspection. And he was given a dark bungalow. Dark bungalow is a very big house, an old traditional house, and he's given a dark bungalow to stay. And when he comes to this to this place, his sweet memories keeps coming back to him, and he wanted to explore the city. So he starts to remember what kind of a place was this when he was young. and he says that this place has undergone metamorphosis. That means metamorphosis is the process we actually talk in context to insects or other animals. Like you must have seen a tadpole. When the frog lays an egg, it changes to a tadpole. And how do the tadpole? It first looks like a fish with a tail, and later on, when it grows, how it changes its form. In the same way, this village or the small town used to look very different when he was there, and now it has undergone a metamorphosis. That means it's a place which looks very different now, and he is hardly aware of anything. He was looking for the wasteland, and he was looking for the kacha houses, but he can only see the pakka houses right now. The cemented houses are there, and there was a banyan tree, but now there is no banyan tree, and in place of that banyan tree there's a beautiful park, right? So the city has changed a lot. And he wanted to embrace the place and cry and complain that it had forgotten me. So he's actually treating this place as a person, and as if this place is a person. And now the narrator wants to hold this place and cry out and complain that you have forgotten me because now you look so different. Did you forget me? He's talking to this place. He's talking about his childhood memories. Now, so what happens next? And then the narrator goes close to two boys who are playing, and he asks this one of the boys about Gaya, that is he still there in this village? And then one of the boys pretend he seemed to know Gaya, so he quickly goes and fetches Gaya for the narrator. Gaya comes um, rushing to the narrator, and here earlier he used to be tall, thin, and his fingers used to be like monkeys. Now he's a dark, huge man, and the narrator could recognize Gaya at the first sight. And he was actually calling Gaya as a friend. But let's see how Gaya's behavior was towards the narrator. Gaya actually bows down to salute the narrator, and he calls him Malik. Okay, and he says that yes, I remember you, Malik. And he asks, how about you? So both of them, they recognize each other, and then they talk about what they do, what are their occupations, right? So but Gaya is submissive now. He's not talking as a friend, he's only talking as a person who's much lower than the narrator. And the narrator says that he's a district engineer, and what about this boy? Gaya is now, he looks after the deputy sahib's horses. Narrator was eager to know about three of his friends, Mattai, Durga, and Mohan, and Gaya says that Mattai has died, and Durga and Mohan, they have become postmen, and he also asks about the narrators. So finally, the narrator comes to Gulli Danda, and he asks if Gaya still played Gulli Danda, and Gaya said yes. So do you play Gulli Danda now? He says. Gaya looked at me in surprise. How can I play, Sarkar? I get no time. So Gaya is saying that he denies. He says that no, I do not play Gulli Danda anymore because I don't have time. And then the narrator persuades him in a sense. He convinces him that let's play a game of Gulli Danda. And then they go to the same place where there was a wasteland, and they find a tree, and the narrator, he makes a gulli and a danda, and he prepares everything, and they were ready to play a game. Gaya, all this time, he was actually standing with the narrator as a person, as a servant, right? Who was looking up to this man who was such a big officer. So first they had decided to play in the town, but since there was a whole lot of crowd, and the narrator had anticipated that if they played there, then the whole town will gather. So they went to this wasteland, and like I told you, the narrator makes a gulli and a danda, and then they are ready to play. And then the game began. The narrator starts to bat first. Okay, so he made a small boat-shaped hole, the starting point, and then he struck it with the danda. the Gulli flew right in front of Gaya. So here you will see that how Gaya used to be such an expert in playing Gulli Danda, but now what changes have come in Gaya? He sees the Gulli flying right in front of him, but when he raised his hand to catch it, as if it was a fish, the Gulli uh, just flew away and he couldn't catch it. And the narrator could not believe it, that this is the same Gaya who, people used to believe that he has magic in his hand, and the Gulli used to come to his hand, right? So here they're saying he might be waiting to the right or left. He raised his hands to catch a fish, but the Gulli just fell just behind him. It was the same Gaya in whose hands the Gulli would land of her own will. So earlier it was like this, but what happened now? He's not able to catch the Gulli. And the Gulli showed no love for him, the narrator says. And then the narrator asks him to fetch the Gulli. He says, go and get the Gulli. And then Gaya was watching all these violations. So he could see that the narrator was actually doing a lot of fouls while playing the game. But he did not dare say anything because he's a big officer right now. After he had fielded for half an hour, the Gulli hit the danda. So Gaya finally was able to hit the Gulli with the danda. And if you are able to hit the danda, that means the batsman should be out. And Gaya was very happy when he finally hit it. And he said, hey, I have hit it, Sahib. And I was hit with a clatter. But the narrator pretended and he said, no, there was no clattering sound. And he said that, no, you didn't hit any danda and it might have hit a rock, brick. And Gaya also, being submissive, he also agreed to the narrator and said, see, he agreed when he said that, oh yes, it must be a clattering noise, it must have hit a brick. So he didn't protest. He was very submissive. Can you see that? The narrator is acting like a boss here, and Gaya is acting like a poor man who is listening to his master. So again, the narrator starts to bat, and again, the same thing happens. Gaya said to me, and then Gaya started batting, but he was terribly out of practice. After the narrator was out, finally he gives up and he lets Gaya bat. But when Gaya started batting, he was terrible. He could not play properly. And his turn was over within a minute, is in less than a minute. Then both of them, they sat in the car and he was about to leave Gaya when Gaya gave him a invitation, gave him an invitation. And he said that tomorrow, he said that the next day there will be a match and he invited the narrator to see the match of Gulli Danda. And the narrator agreed to see that game. So the next day, not to see but also to play, right? So but the narrator, he didn't go to play, he was inside his car and he saw Gaya and his the other members, other players of the game who were gathered there and they were playing. He could see from his car that most of the players were young and the narrator did not know him. When the match began, he started watching the game. And he was amazed, he was astonished, surprised to see Gaya's skill. So Gaya was actually in his real form now. He did not forget Gulli Danda and it looked like he had practiced Gulli Danda all these years. So when he struck the Gulli, it flew into the sky. There was no trace of yesterday's hesitation. So yesterday, the day before, when he was playing with the narrator, he was very hesitant. He was nervous because he was playing with a big officer, remember? And he was not enjoying the game. He was doing it only to please the master, only to please the narrator. But here, now he's in his real form and he could see that how well he plays. And the narrator was literally into tears. And he thought that had he made me feel like this yesterday, I would have burst into tears. So the narrator, in his heart, he is thankful that Gaya did not play like this. Otherwise, he would have lost very easily within a very short period of time. The Gulli would travel 200 yards when he would strike it with his danda. So this shows how proficient was Gaya in his game. One of the fielders tried to cheat. So one of the field, just like the narrator tried to cheat yesterday, the day before, one of the players tried to cheat, but Gaya was very swift. He was very quick to identify him, and Gaya immediately caught him. And right now, Gaya, because he's not playing with an officer or someone who's above him, so he picks up, he makes sure that the cheating was not there. I had cheated, but he did not lose his temper. So here now, this is very important, where the narrator is saying that I had cheated, but he did not lose his temper. See, when he was playing with the narrator was also cheating, but Gaya did not say anything, and he just submissively accepted whatever the narrator was saying. And he did not want me to chase the Gulli endlessly. He also helped the narrator to chase the Gulli. He did to find the Gulli, and he did not want the narrator to take a long time finding the Gulli, because he was an officer and he realized his position in front of the narrator. Gaya very well understood that there is no equality between him and the narrator. He knew the bridge of rich and the richness and poorness, the status, the financial status, and the positions that each of them held. And he knew that the narrator was in a much higher position than he is, and there is no match he could make with the narrator. So he was readily submissive to the narrator. Now I could get his respect. So the narrator agrees that Gaya respected him a lot, and he does not deny that that Gaya did not respect him or anything. But he's very sad that now Gaya can never treat the narrator like his friend. Remember the first time when Gaya had held him and he hit him with a danda? Can he do it now? No, he cannot do it now, because Gaya very well understands, now that he is an adult, he understands the gap between a rich person and a poor person, and he knows that he cannot, uh, you know, behave like the same Gaya when he was young, when he did not know these barriers. So at that time, his mind was free, and he had to still learn a lot of things. And according to him, when it is friendship at that point of time, for every child, when you know a friend, you don't see their richness or poorness. You just treat them like friends, like equals. So the narrator sees that that innocence is gone. Now Gaya is a matured man, and he will never treat him as a friend. But now, in this position, I was an object of his pity. So he could see that how badly the narrator was playing, how the narrator was cheating all the time. And he actually felt pity on the narrator in that position, how he was playing Gulli Danda. But he pretended as if everything was nice and he was doing well. He did not consider me his equal. If he thought so, then he would have played honestly. But he did not do that. He just pretended that he was there with the narrator. He actually did not enjoy the game when he was playing with the narrator. He had grown taller and I had grown smaller. So the narrator, although he was an engineer and he had a very high position, the best demonstration of humiliation was portrayed by Gaya, because Gaya treated him so well, although he knew Gulli Danda so well, right? He pretended as if he did not know anything, so that the narrator feels good, so that the narrator feels uh, can keep his dignity in his for his own, right? And he did not want the narrator to feel that he did not know he did not play well, but actually he was a terrible player in Danda, the narrator. But Gaya did not let him know that. That is why the last sentence is very important, which says that he had grown taller. So now the narrator is saying that he has so much of respect for Gaya now that he feels very small in front of Gaya. His personality was so great. So this is a very important lesson. I hope the message that this this beautiful story carries goes along with you for your whole life. You also learn something out of this story. And this is mainly a story which is showing you the barriers that we have between rich people and poor people, and how do the poor people feel about the rich people, and how can the friendship be affected because of the financial position of a person. And most of the time it's not the money who makes up a man, right? It's not the money which makes a person a real human being. It's how you learn about life and how you treat life, and how you respect everyone who's around you, and how you treat everyone according to their capabilities, right? So this is a very beautiful lesson. I hope you have understood it. If you have any questions, please ask. Here are a few questions. How is the game of Gulli Danda played? So I have told you this. There's a gulli, which is a small piece of stick, and then danda, which is a long stick made out of tree branch. They dig a hole, a boat-shaped hole, and then the person who's batting hits the gully and it flies in the air. The person who is fielding is supposed to catch the gully and hit the danda, right? And if he is able to hit the danda, then the person who's batting is out. And if he is not able to hit the danda, then of course the person who is fielding has to continue doing that. How is the game different from other games? Well, like the narrator has said in the chapter, in this game you don't need a lot of space, you don't need a lot of players, even two people can play this game, and a very small piece of land is enough. And this game is different from the other games because you don't need to spend any money for this. There is no finance incurred here, right? So you can take any tree branch, make gulli and danda, and you're ready to go. Also, this game can bring people. If you can see here, also the narrator was able to make bonds with the other children as a child, because this is a game which is a team game, and it gives the spirit of oneness or togetherness, right? So this game is definitely a different kind of game. Also, it's an Indian game of Indian origin, so we must feel more proud about this game, which is so simple yet enjoyed by everyone. Why did the narrator feel humiliated when Gaya hit him? Of course, because he was the son of a thanedar, of policeman, and his father was a respectable man. And I'm sure because of his father's status, he also had a high position in the society. And Gaya was just a normal, ordinary guy whom he didn't even know where he came from, or what his family background was. He was just another boy, and he hit him. So it definitely hurt his dignity, and he was humiliated. After the narrator grew up and returned to the village, what changes did he notice there? There was a lot of changes. You have to go to the chapter and you can see that here it's written here. There was a banyan tree. Where is it? Yeah. So here there was nothing familiar except so where there was a wasteland. So you can write it from here. Where there was a wasteland, I found a pakka house, and in location, so you can write it from, yes, this much will be the answer, right? These are the changes he saw. And next question is, describe the scene when the narrator and Gaya play the game of Gulli Danda again as adults. So this was a wasteland. They go to the same place, and you can again find from the chapter. Let's see. Here you will find here you will find it. So you can say they had driven 3 miles away from the town. There was silence all around. Towards the west, there was a marshland. So this is all the description of the answer. So you can write this as well. And the next question is, uh, what is the difference? What difference did the narrator notice in Gaya's way of playing the following day? Yes, Gaya was actually an expert in playing Gulli Danda, but he was pretending as if he is out of practice in front of the narrator, and he couldn't hit the danda for a long time. And when he was batting also, his turn was over within less than a minute. I was an officer, and this position had created a wall between us. What was this wall? The wall was a barrier. The wall was uh, the the thoughts that Gaya had for the narrator, which had changed with time. Because of this wall, now the poor man, the Gaya, he was not able to treat the narrator as his friend. Because of this wall, the Gaya, who was actually an outgoing person, was not able to enjoy the game of Gulli Danda with the narrator. It's this wall because of which Gaia was actually playing submissively. Although he was not enjoying, he agreed to play with the narrator. He agreed to uh, accept the fact that the narrator was playing better than him. This wall has created so many changes, right? There are more questions. If you have any questions, if you think you cannot answer these, you can always ask them.